650s and 750s. So that can be extremely helpful. And then a printable nav log. Well, this is very, very old school. Who prints the nav log anymore? Okay. Now in the Pro Plus, this I recommend for all pilots. This is, if you're going to use Foreflight at all, this is the place to start. Now, if you're an instrument rated pilot or interested in getting a little more out of your iPad, make it worth all the money, the thing that I think is especially wonderful is this georeferenced approaches and charts. That this will tell you where you are on that approach plate for an IFR pilot. You get everything that we talked about over here, but then you get everything that's in the approaches and charts. You can transfer the plate and superimpose it on the map, so you can see exactly where you are. Like you look at an approach and you wonder, why does it have that funny bend in it? And when you superimpose it on a sectional, you realize, oh, there's towers right off to the one side, and that's why it goes around a bend. I have synthetic vision with an external, like an external device, like a Stratus or a Stratix, something to give it attitude and speed information. The hazard advisor is wonderful in that you can display it on your iPad, and it shows you, you know, you're running low. You're running like 3,000 feet, depending where you are in our country. In our section of North Carolina, 3,000 feet is pretty much okay. But as you get out farther to the west, 3,000 feet won't cut it. Well, this will show you exactly where the problems are in your proposed route. And then tells you terrain. It'll show you where the airspace is. And we have tons of military areas around here. So it's always nice to know where they are and if they figure in your course or not. And then it's got some extra in the weather, in interactive icing and turbulence layers in the map. And the only thing I'm interested in icing is to stay out of it, since I don't fly that kind of an airplane. Now you can spend lots of money on Foreflight if you want to. The Performance Plus level is everything in Pro Plus, which is all of this stuff. And it has all kinds of things that are pretty well, from what I can see, they're mostly used by the corporate pilots, because I talked to the corporate pilots I see coming through with the FBO, and I say, do you use Foreflight? Oh yeah. Well, do you know which level you use? Oh yeah, Performance Plus. That's the way to go, because it's got everything I need in there. And the one thing I have found that is extremely valuable is this airport 3D view. This for me is a reason to pay for that, and I'll tell you the qualifier on that one. When I'm going into an airport, especially an airport I've had to divert to, and I don't know what it looks like, I don't know what I'm looking for, it brings up a Google Earth view of what it is, and you can rotate it to match your exact approach heading, and see exactly what you're looking for. Like, oh, there's trees and there's a field over here and there's a road there, and oh boy, that makes it a whole lot easier to figure out where you're going. So that's what's nice. And what's nice about Foreflight in general, if you're an instructor or a member of NAFI or SAFE, I think both these organizations do it, you can get a 30% discount on Foreflight by having your membership number handy and calling Foreflight support when you do your renewal. And you can get a 30% discount, which on $300 is about $100. So I pay for Pro Plus, but I get Performance Plus for the same money. So it's like, so if you want to save money, you can get 30% off either of these, or any of these actually. But if you're willing to pay $200 a year anyway, why not get the higher level if you're an instructor? So look it up on the NAFI and the SAFE websites under the members benefits areas, and take a look at that. You'll find it very useful. And this is, I would like to acquaint you with the Bible. This is the Bible of Foreflight. This is the user's edition. It's actually several hundred pages now. It started out as a 10-page document, when this first came out. But I highly, highly recommend downloading this. Not necessarily sitting down and try to read it like a novel, but think about what would I like to do, and go to the table of contents and look it up. And that's probably the easiest way. Or you find yourself wandering through the settings, wondering what do these mean, or what are the ICAO codes I need. Any of those would be, they're all answered either here or in some other support document. Tim, I have a list of the references for all of these in a handout that Tim was going to attach to the SPANS announcement, to the announcement of the meeting, which if you go back to FAAsafety.gov and bring up the listing for the meeting, you pull down the links. So that's why I'm not giving you any links here, because they're long and hairy. But go out and look for it. So there's a pilot's guide. There's a guide to ICAO flight plan filing, which explains all the codes. I found that's what I use for figuring out which codes apply to which features in the airplane and which ones go with other ones. If you file one, you've got to not file some other one, and this is very confusing. So that's where I get all my answers. All right, so how many questions do we have so far? I see that.
Got one question about describe the difference between a jet's approach plates versus Foreflight.
Oh, a jet, well, Foreflight actually has both. You can import your jet approach plate subscription into Foreflight, but by default they give you the government charts. So that's you can use jet charts if you prefer them. I'm too cheap for that, and I don't have that much of a need for it personally. But if that's what you like and you're willing to pay for a jet subscription, you can import it into Foreflight, no problem. Why don't they just call it Basic Pro Performance? I haven't got a clue. I don't know on that one. I guess they want you to feel like you're getting plus something on all of them. Foreflight started out as an independent software company, and then a few years ago they were bought by Boeing, and I thought, oh boy, here we go. They're going to try to turn it into a cash cow. They're going to quit improving it. Things are going to be ugh. But I'm delighted to say that has not happened at all. They've continued to put a lot of effort into it and improve the features and keep going. And we probably should do this about every 6 months with the new releases that come out, to go over what's new in them. I spend a lot of time just trying to keep up with them. So any other questions right now, or we'll see what else is coming up?
Is there a discount available for United States Coast Guard Auxiliary Air?
Not that I'm aware of. You could call Foreflight support and ask them. The only ones I'm aware of are for the National Flight Instructors, NAFI, NAFI, or SAFE, and I'm not sure what that stands for, but that's another flight instructor association. But it's because I'm a flight instructor, probably because I know that. Okay, let's move on. So sometimes it's nice to do a little night flying. This was the other night when I had a student, we were going out and doing getting ready to do some night flying. All right, let's talk about iPads. The only thing these things have in common is 4 letters, IPAD. Everything else is different, I suspect. These are the new models. Now this screen capture is right off the Apple website. If you go, the link is in the handout on how to get there. This is a summary of what's available. We're going to go over the 4 types and talk about their features and their advantages and disadvantages. So let's talk about the iPad Pro. This comes in 2 sizes, and I'm talking about current Apple models. I'm not talking about older ones right now. I'm talking about the ones that are in the market right now, today. It comes in 12.9 inches, which is a 13-inch, essentially a 13-inch screen and an 11-inch screen, which means you can see everything. It has all the latest in connectivity, 5G cell service, and gigabit LTE2, which is different, I understand, from the LTE that my iPad uses. It works with Apple Pencil, which is nice, I thought, but I've got a student who's just, that's the way he does it. He loves it. It'll work with various kinds of keyboards. I use Bluetooth keyboard with mine. And it has the USB-C connector, which is different than the current Lightning connector they've used with previous models of iPads. And it's got a USB 4 connector. So this is like the Cadillac of all the iPads. This is the good news, and these are the features. It's a fairly large size, because if you picture something, 12 inches high and probably about, I would say, at least 8 or 9 inches wide. It's difficult to find that. I've seen people with these, and they have a tough time figuring out where to put it in the cockpit to use it while they're flying. And we'll talk about positioning in the cockpit a little bit later. But that's the bad news. The good news is you can read the text and the charts on it without a problem. And you will, if you have a current iPhone or a current iPad, you will need to buy new plugs, because it's a different model, different kind of thing. This uses the kind of plug that you use on a Kindle or some other, or headphones and that sort of thing. Uses that kind of a plug. So that's the iPad Pro. Now the iPad Air is a 11-inch display, which is the size of the smaller iPad Pro. It does not have the 5G cell network, but it's a little less expensive. And the displays on these are absolutely as clear as a bell. So this one has the larger screen, and it uses the newer modes, and it uses the newer plugs. So it's just something to consider. And the pricing was there on that initial one. Now this one's just called the iPad, and I don't know why they didn't give it another adjective, because it's really kind of cute. But one of the major advantages is this is the size of what used to be the big iPad in earlier days, and I think it starts at like $400, which for an iPad is incredibly inexpensive. So this is probably very affordable. If you're working within a tight budget, this might be a good place to start looking. It does have the newer kind of cell service. It'll work with old Apple Pencils, which I don't know, the newer ones won't. And it has the old style connector, so you don't have to buy all new plugs if you currently have an iPhone. And one of the advantages to Foreflight, when you get a subscription, you can put it on 2 iPads and a phone. So you have, you use one for your primary, one for your backup, and then your phone is your second backup. So that's really nice to have. So if you have 2 iPads, you can put Foreflight on both of them. For me, I use it for my iPad, and then my husband, who's not a pilot, likes to keep up with going on. So I share my second iPad. That's his iPad, and that works very nicely for our family. All right, so the starting price is a little bit less than other iPad models. And because it's only 10 inches, it's a little bit easier to position in the cockpit. I've seen people, I've watched lots of my students, trying to figure out where to go with the iPad in the cockpit. And we're going to talk about mounts next. That's our next project. So. And this one's the iPad Mini. This is the 4th one. This is my personal selection. I like the smaller size because I put it on a knee board, which can have its pluses and its minuses. We'll talk about positioning in the cockpit in a minute. But I like it because it has all the capability of the larger iPads, but it's a more convenient size. It doesn't get in the way of anything, and I have it right where I can get to it and use it, and it's quite useful, I find. It works with the Bluetooth keyboards. Now the new ones use USB connectors. I have an iPad 5, which is an older model, but this particular size I like. So this is okay. Yeah, it's the smallest screen size, and I frequently have to use the zoom feature to see the details. But you can position it on the yoke. You can put it you can attach it to the glare shield, which we'll be talking about in a minute. So I think that's what we have. Yeah. Okay. Now this is for those of you that say, oh, my cousin has an iPad I can use for Foreflight. Well, yes. Go to the system. Go to the settings area and look under general what is it? sorry, I need to figure this out for you. It's in the settings and the about area, and see exactly what kind of iPad it is. It'll tell you whether it's a mini or it's an iPad 1, 2, 3 or whatever. And if it's any of these, that you cannot run Foreflight on it. So it has to be a moderately modern one, you know, a couple back. Like it says, they no longer support iPad 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, my 5 is okay. So I'm, or, you know, or, you know, my iPad 5, mini 5 is still okay for now. If you have an older iPhone, which I think iPhone is now up to 13s now. If you have an older iPhone, it's not gonna work it. And in the handout, there's a link to the buying guide where they go into great detail on exactly what kind of hardware to get and what to ask, what kind of questions to ask before you commit to buying some hardware. So take a look at that.
Jan,
Yes.
back up one screen.
Yeah, we're ready for back up a screen.
Yeah. Okay, so now go forward a screen.
Which one?
No, the other way. Go the other way.
This one?
Okay, so the iPad Mini 3 is what I have. And I had iPad Mini 3 when they were still supporting the Mini 3.
Mm-hmm.
That they no longer support it. I still can use Foreflight. I just can't get all the latest stuff that you were talking about that's available now.
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, it'll still run the older versions of Foreflight, but if you want the latest whiz bangs in Foreflight, you know you're going to be limited to what's the last software level you can install on the older iPads. So if you're starting out in Foreflight, I would say just get one that fully supports it at this point. But if you have one that you've been using successfully and you're happy with what you've got in Foreflight, that's, you know, if it works, go for it. But just be cautious about that. Check page 3 of the buying guide. And this is the buying guide. You'll find this out on the support website. It's on page 3 is where this, and it's got a lot of detail on exactly what models to get and how much memory to get and all that kind of stuff. So questions, I see we've got some questions out here. How about?
We've got one question that says, are you going to talk about using Foreflight as just the type of iPads?
I'm not tonight. I'm not talking about Foreflight. No, that's going to be next week.
Yeah.
We're just talking
October
about
18th and November 1st. What about the processor speed of each model?
I haven't got a clue. That's all in the specifications.
And then what, do you recommend an iPad with a built-in GPS?
Yes. And when I say built-in GPS, you get that with an iPad that has the capability of cell service. You don't have to have the cell service turned on, but it has to have the capability of cell service to have the internal GPS. If it's a Wi-Fi only iPad, it does not have a built-in GPS of any sort, and you have to use an external device like a Bad Elf or something of that sort. So that's the scoop on that. Now you can get an iPad that as long as it has the capability of cell service, but not necessarily cell service turned on, you're good to go. You've got your internal GPS. Okay, anything else?
That's it right now.
Okay. There's the buying guide. And that's what the cover looks like, but you know, go ahead and it's just something you download off the support website. Take a look at the details of it especially if you're looking at purchasing hardware. Look at this first before you buy anything. So the next question comes up, how much memory should you get? And you can get iPads with all kinds, you know, small amounts of memory, 64 gig, that sort of thing. For Foreflight alone, you need a minimum of 256 gig, just so you can download everything you want to be able to download and have it available in the cockpit. If you're using the iPad for other things, get more memory than that, maybe get 512 gig. But I personally subscribe to the theory of no such thing as too much memory. I was ordering my iPhone 13, and I told my husband I always get the top line of memory, and I realized it's several terabytes. I was like, holy cow. So I did back off on that a little bit, but you can get lots and lots of memory on these things. But right now, if you don't have enough memory, the Apple operating system is continually removing apps that you haven't used recently, and then you have to reload them when you want to use them, and it's a pain in the neck. So think of it. The place to economize is not on how much memory it's on. Maybe you want just an iPad instead of an iPad Pro or something. That would be the place to think about economizing. So, okay. We're making good progress through here. All right, where to put the iPad? This is the $94 question. You want to be able to see it without moving your head too much, especially in instrument conditions. You want to have it be in a convenient place. You don't want it to be, you don't want to have it mounted here and you're right-handed trying to get at it. Or if you have to look down a lot to look at it, a knee board might not be the right thing. Wherever you can, what works for you is going to be different for you than it will be even for another pilot of the same airplane. So you have to be able to manipulate it, because that's how you get to the information on it, and you want to be able to read it easily. So you may need your reading glasses handy. And you don't want it blocking the views of essential instruments, which, if you put it on your yoke, is it going to block some engine instruments along the bottom of the instrument panel? If you put it up here, is it going to block whatever's on the left-hand side of the panel? If you put it over there, is it going to be too far away? Every airplane is different. Every airplane and every pilot is different. Because I teach in a DA-40, and I see everything. Because every pilot that gets in there has a different scheme that works for him or her. And whatever works for you is what you should do. So if you have any questions on that, I did a brief look at the kind of mounts that are available. So these are the only thing that I would say I would highly not recommend is having it loose in the cockpit, like just sitting on your knee with not being attached to your knee at all. I have a student who has a brand new iPad. I mean, he works for Apple, so he got it really early. And he had it on his left leg because he wanted it handy, but he didn't have it attached to a knee board or anything. And in the DA-40, it has a canopy that opens up. And in warm weather, you can open the canopy a little slit along the side and open it. It's called the cooling gap, which is great, which happened to be just right next to where he's got this iPad on his knee. And all I could picture was this iPad slipping out this gap and going crash down to the ramp. It was like, ah! So definitely do not have it loose. Have it handy, have it tied down somewhere so you can get at it quickly. So you can attach it to a yoke, you can attach it to the panels or the glare shield. I've seen it, different things, or a knee board, but just not loose. Because invariably, if it's loose, it's going to slip off your leg, or it's going to slip off the glare shield and go where you don't want it to go, or you can't reach it when you need it. So not loose. Whatever you decide on, not loose. So this is from mypilotstore.com. This is off their website today. You can see that it doesn't have to cost a bundle. They start relatively inexpensively, because here's the cradle. Now here you'd need the cradle and the base. And they've got this particular model works. They have different sizes for different models of iPads, but they're very nice, and they hang on to them, hang on to the iPad very conveniently, and give you a place to put. You still have room to put the charging port in. So that's what's available here from just one pilot. And there were pages and pages here. It says 68 results. So there's pages and pages of this stuff. I just wanted you to see the basics of what's there. And this is from Sporties, and here again, there's 4 pages of mounts. Now they have, here's one that's on the yoke, Here's one that'll, you can suction cup it up on the glare shield. On this particular X-Naut case, this is for a larger iPad. I have one for a mini, which only has 2 fans in it. And the thing is, yeah, it's more like this one, but I have a different, I have it on a knee board as opposed to this kind of a thing because I don't have a yoke in the GA40. But things that's so nice about this one is that it has fans, which will keep the iPad cool, which is something to be considered because they do overheat. And when they overheat, they're less than bricks. All they are is in the way, and they've got a little thermometer thing on. You can ask me how I know that. But they do overheat. So if you get a cooling case, now this looks a little bit pricey, but when you think of the iPad is now always cool and always available when you want it, it might be worth thinking about. You can run this either on batteries, or you can get a charging cord that will fit. You can charge both the iPad and run the batteries at the same time and to one USB port. So that part is very nice that X-Naut sells. But you can see I didn't try to give you a complete list, but I would say go out to Sporties and take a look, and you see there's 4 pages, and you can spend a little bit of money or a lot of money or in between money, whatever you need. So, all right, how are we doing on questions and answers?
Do you need multiple subscriptions to run Foreflight on an iPad and an iPhone? No, they run, you have to download the material, you have to download separately, but it's the same subscription. Does Airport 3D require cell service in flight?
What you do, it does Airport 3D, you have to have the 3D stuff downloaded before you take off. So you have to be sure you pack for your flight, which we'll be talking about that when we talk about flight planning next time. You have to be sure you have downloaded all the information for your flight before you take off, because it does not do any kind of downloads in flight at all. Oh, expensive, can it fail in flight? No, Foreflight only runs on Apple iOS, period, which much to the despair of my members who are not, as they quote, not Apple fanboys. So if you don't have an Apple device, you're unfortunately SOL. So expensive, and can it fail in flight? Well, if it overheats, yes, it will fail in flight. So you definitely want to have some sort of a backup, even if it's just a paper charts or something that you have available. That if it overheats, that's the primary problem. Or if you drop it on the ramp. Oh, sigh. You can ask me how I know that one too. But it is not available on any other tablet other than an iPad of some sort. So that's the scoop on that one.
I'm using an iPad mini with a Stratus, but if someone were trying to use the iPad without a Stratus, would they have ADS-B available for traffic?
Only if it's connected to your panel. If you don't have some kind of connection to your panel, either your Garmin or G1000 or something. The
version show position on the airport and taxiways.
I don't think so, because all the georeferencing is in the Performance Plus. That's what makes the Performance Plus really worthwhile. It'll show you it. Basic Plus is like having all the paper available, all the books available to you, right there in that one device.
Is there a reason why Foreflight Web changes the chart settings randomly? Goes for VFR charts back to regular maps.
That's usually a map option. Huh. I didn't know it did that. Look into that one. Where did you see that one? Is that in the chat box?
It's in the chat.
Okay. Okay. I see here in the chat box, Deborah says you don't need to purchase an Apple Pencil. That is true, because you can use your finger or any kind of a stylus on the scratch pads. And we'll be talking about that next week. Dale says, I'm using an iPad mini with a Stratus. Okay. Okay, that was about the ADSB. No, and not unless you can attach it to your panel. Because the Stratus is the source of the ADSB information in this case. If you have a GTN, a Garmin GTN 650 or 750 with a Flight Stream 210, you should be able to get it. But that's because you're attached to the panel. It has to be attached to something to get the ADSB information. Yeah, Tricia says you need a Stratus or external aids as a receiver. Yep, that's true. Yeah, there are external devices you can use that aren't Stratus, and that's all covered in the user's guide. But the iPad alone will not affect you anything, won't get traffic advisories. Yes, that is true. That is true. I mount my iPad on my Rosen visor mount in 172. Well, it's a good idea. Especially, well, as long as it doesn't get in the view when you're looking for traffic. But if it works for you, go for it. Okay, Jer, I don't know what to tell you about not getting audio. He's got a lot of good suggestions here. Yeah, Velcro leg strap with clips also works well for holding onto it. But yeah, the whole point is that it's not loose in the cockpit. Yes, Robbie, I would agree with you. That works very well.
DPEs in our area allow iPads for practicals, IFR practicals.
That in I know Greg Hudson does in our area, and Frank Gozo as well. So and Jay Neighbors. So yeah, I'd say they do. They didn't used to, like Frank Gozo in particular would fail them on you in a check ride, but he hasn't done that for 4 or 5 years now that I've heard, and I send students to him for check rides. I think some kind of directive came down from on high at FAA saying that thou shalt allow at least some kind of electronic device. And I know we are this way, teaching to electronic devices than we used to.
And do you have light sport aircraft profiles in Foreflight?
I don't know. I've never looked for them. Let me find out. But even if your airplane is not there, you can get your POH out and put the actual information in from the POH. Because even if you download an aircraft profile, you want to sit down with your POH and make sure that the data in it exactly matches what's in your POH, because that's the critical part. So if you have access, you should have access to a copy of the POH, even maybe online, or go and make nice noises to the person. Because I know the POH has to be in your airplane, but maybe they have a copy in the office that you could borrow, just to sit and verify that. Okay.
Can iPad Foreflight connect to 2 Bluetooth, example, a Stratus for ADSB in and a Flight Stream connection for flight plan entry at the same time?
Able to. I mean, that's just a feature of Bluetooth. I know. On mine, I can have my iPad connected to my panel, which is Bluetooth, because I fly G1000, an old G1000, and then Bluetooth to my phone, not a problem. What other cables, battery packs do you recommend getting with an iPad? Well, have some way of powering it. The airplanes that I fly all have USB charging ports right as part of the electrical system. So I just plug in my cable and I go. But yeah, you definitely want to have some kind of external charging for it, not just the internal battery in the iPad. You want to have something that's going to keep it charged up for you, because the Foreflight likes to run the screen the whole time, and to have it really be useful, you don't want to be trying to open it every time you want to use it. So it is very handy to make sure, you want to make sure that the battery is kept up while you're flying, because if you're on like a 3-hour cross country, it will kill the battery in your the internal battery in your iPad. So definitely have some external charging source. So you need a charging cable, need a battery, or a connection into the panel for the USB charging. Stratus makes a nice charge. If you're upgrading your panel a bit, Stratus makes a little charger that's about yay big that you can just put in maybe in the place where your old what they now call the power socket, but it fits right in there, and it has two USB spots that will fully charge the iPad and nothing flat.
Have you ever had yours iPad overheat with the cooling fans?
No, never. That was why I bought it. It struck me. I thought, oh, I don't need that. It's so darned expensive. And then I was on a trip with one of my airplane partners, and he had an X-Naut case, and I had mine down on my knee and everything, but it was a hot day. His didn't overheat. Mine did. Like, okay, you've sold me. So, so Michael Kruger, that's what I would recommend, is make sure you have some way of charging it, either through the panel or with a separate battery or whatever. But whatever works for you is the right answer. Okay, Bruce says, in regard to Jail's question, oh, you can show your, okay, you can show your position on a taxiway by zooming into the aeronautical map. Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you. I didn't know that one. Thank you much. And Deborah says she uses a Scout for traffic. Okay, so that's another, that's like a Stratus, but it's I think it's probably a less expensive alternative. The Stratus connects via Wi-Fi, yes. Yeah, the screen is usually in full brightness. Drains the battery in a hurry. Yes, you are absolutely correct, George. That is what happens. And it's a very sad situation. So, okay. Well, that's what I had for tonight. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about next. Well, thank you to everybody. Maybe I'll see you at IMC and VMC Club, or I'll see you next time. So, good night, everybody.